I'm focused on the spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome back to News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris. Also getting on the bandwagon to talk about the SAVE Act and this really interesting clip of this, I guess, white lib, on a panel with Will Kane asking different voters about the SAVE Act and stuff. And he says minorities, will have a hard time being able to vote. And then there's like two black people on the panel. They're just like, what are you talking about? So it's really interesting how people are conditioned to, I suppose, be racist, especially with the soft bigotry of low expectations is the phrase. And it's really a weapon to, I don't know, maybe not maliciously condition people because they want black people, they want them to like hate black people or really think that they're childlike or wildly incompetent, but it just serves their political aims and their political agendas. If they can separate everything by racial motivation. So because nobody wants to be called a racist, right? Nobody wants to be called a racist. Nobody wants people to think that they're racist. So much to the point in the UK that people people in authority and power didn't pursue like the rape gangs and stuff that were happening because they didn't want people to think that they were racist. So a lot of people can be really harmed when that is the focus of so many people involved in politics and so on. So it's just really stupid. Again, I think there's legitimate things you maybe could complain about the SAVE Act that they could work together and tweak if they really wanted. But this whole idea, I know we talked about this a lot, but it's a hot topic. It's a hot issue. It's a policy that the Trump administration is trying to push through. It's probably going to be, if it gets passed, a signature piece of legislation, perhaps the only one that will really get passed, because we'll see what happens between now and the midterms. But there's not, I don't think a great feeling that we're going to maintain the House. So after that, a lot of Trump stuff might be just dead on arrival. So this could be like the last thing that they do end up passing that has Trump's name on it, other than very bloated budgets, I'm assuming, that are yet to come. So it's always fascinating how people really, really focus on race with these sorts of different things in a way that it just obviously doesn't make sense and makes them look racist. But they accuse, of course, Republicans and folks like Donald Trump of being racist for pushing these kind of policies. Also, the Squatty Potty, y'all remember Squatty Potty? Squatty Potty was one of the earlier sort of inventions that made it on Shark Tank. The creator was arrested in Utah for child pornography. So we'll go through that story real quick, which is really, really unfortunate and very weird and gross, obviously. And we'll talk about some other things as well. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost a stream on my side, all that stuff, so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch that's available on the website as well, different t-shirts and mugs. And I do have different books and so on that you guys can check out if you guys are interested in anything like that. I had a book reviewer she reviewed The Color of God's Eyes, and she also, which the poster's behind me over there, and she also reviewed the Song of the Devil's Lips. That's the sequel. And so she said that she really loved it. She's like, the next one's in the works, isn't it? And I'm like, yes, it's in the works. But it's just, it's taking place during the Civil War. And so the first one's like at the start of it, the second one, the big like climax sort of action event was the draft riots. So this one is like in the it's 1864 is the year that this is taking place. So lots of big battles and different things happening. So it just is a lot of research and it's not like I've been to the past in this era. So it just requires a lot of research and stuff, but I'm really excited about it, and so I'm glad that people like it. Just glad people liked it. So I'm having some different book events, not just in Michigan, but other places as well, that I'll keep people updated on. So I'm excited about this year and other things that I might be doing. An interesting thing, though, yesterday we talked about a video that an ex-evangelical atheist had put out, and I replied to it. But I did a sharper reply later and posted it on Facebook and on X. No, not X, TikTok. And so someone who usually comes in my comments and is pretty obsessively anti-Israel, trash the Bible in all kinds of different things. And I wasn't surprised that he was anti-God, anti-Christianity, and said that the Bible teaches everybody to be prejudiced toward one group, and you guys think that Israel can do no wrong because of the Bible and blah blah blah. And I just think that is like the dumbest perspective you could possibly have, especially if you read the Bible. Like if you read the Old Testament and you read, I don't know, Judges and just other books like that, you're just like, oh gosh, look at that. They messed up again. They messed up again. Oh, they messed up again. Come to God. Mess up again. Like, oh, you guys are messing up again. I love when God's like, name your child, not my people, because he's just so ticked off. So Dennis Prager said, that it's divinely inspired, because like basically why would the Jews write a book like this that makes them look so bad? So it's really not about it being a pro-Jew book that teaches you to hate other people, because God intended to bless all the nations of the world through them, which eventually leads to Jesus, right? And all nations can be saved, all people can be saved, all people can be blessed if they choose to accept, Jesus Christ. And I just don't get how anyone who claims to have read the Bible can come away, I guess, with that particular sort of conclusion. But whatever, if that's what you think, God making them the chosen people isn't really about them. That's something they did. It's just God chose them, and it was his prerogative to do that, to show himself mighty. And they were an unfaithful people who, again, would backslide, fall away, and then come back, backslide, fall away, come back, and so on and so forth. And it was really about his faithfulness. When he did the covenant with Abraham, he did that covenant with himself, so it was just a decision that he made to show himself mighty through this unmighty and small people, again, so all nations of the world can be blessed through Jesus Christ. So if your takeaway is something different than the Bible, I guess recommend that you go back and read it again. I guess. So but I love the Bible. It's fascinating. Really, really interesting. If they did the book of Judges, it'd have to be like an HBO TV show. It's so wild. But the Bible's really fascinating. Me and my sisters, we always talk about how, like, if we're on the phone with each other for a while, eventually the conversation is going to lead back to God somehow, some way. And we talk about, what the sermons were like, what podcasts we're listening to, what we read recently, or something that we saw TikTok about, and commenting on this comment was so ridiculous, and so on. Like I mentioned yesterday, I was going back and forth with someone about IVF. I don't think I talked about this yesterday, but there's a big discussion about Kirsten Hawkins, because she said the death penalty is not compatible compatible with like the pro-life message. And I tried to record a video last night, but it was really late and I just wasn't pumping out good content because I was like literally in my bed, like on my pillow trying to record it. I'm like, I'm not conscious enough for this, I guess, but I'll have to maybe make that when I get off the air with you guys. But I don't like that sort of statement because one, you're the head of a pro-life organization. She's head of Students for Life. And many pro-life people, when they debate on TikTok or other places, they want to keep the conversation on, is abortion immoral? And they do what they can to not derail the conversation. They're like, no anecdote, don't tell me any kind of stories. Let's not talk about your personal life, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to talk about the logic of, is it moral to commit a premeditated homicide against the preborn? Is your logic that you're using only specifically for the womb? Would you apply this logic in other outside scenarios? It's just really about that logic and whether you're morally consistent and things like that. What people don't want is people coming in the comments and be like, well, what about the war in Israel and Gaza and all? Okay, we could talk about those things, but that's not the same subject. Like, we're not talking about abortion. The premeditated homicide of the preborn is not the same as you arguing the ethics of warfare. It's just not. Those are important things to discuss, but you can have different opinions on that versus your opinions on abortion. And same with the death penalty. Those ethics that you're going to discuss about justice and so on are different in this particular scenario. So it's just abortion, like being pro-life, it's supposed to be anti-abortion and euthanasia, but mostly we focus on the topic of abortion. So trying to tie it into all kinds of different stuff, I don't think it's helpful. I think it's distracting. And it's why, like, I saw a post like a year ago or so from a pastor who's like, this is why I'm not pro-life. I'm not pro-life because I'm for the death penalty, because I support just warfare, because blah, 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 and was going on and on about different things. And I thought the post, I could understand his post, but I'm like, okay, but pro-life just means anti-abortion. So you don't have to claim that you're not pro-life. But then you got Kristen Hawkins saying that's incompatible with the death penalty. So I just don't think it's great on her part as an advocate and head of a pro-life organization. I also just happen to disagree with her premise completely, entirely. Whether you are deliberately ending the life of your preborn child is very different than seeking justice for someone, seeking justice for someone and against someone who has committed atrocities, probably multiple murders. Or in the case of like Florida, you can seek the death penalty for people who rape kids. You know, how is saying that person deserves justice and you take out the person who committed the heinous act the same or not? Why is it not compatible with, hey, we want to stop people from killing these innocents over here? And when I say innocent, I don't mean that the preborn have like mental agency to be good or bad, but I mean they are not deserving of that sort of punishment or wrath or harm committed against them. So she brought up different scriptures because people pointed out, because she's Catholic, and Catholic doctrine, from my understanding, did support the death penalty for a long time. But she brought up like the woman at the well for some reason. I didn't think that was a great connection. Like the woman with 5 husbands. I didn't know if she confused that with the woman caught in adultery, but she brought up the woman caught in adultery and basically showed like, hey, Jesus showed mercy on her and she was, supposed to get the death penalty. And that's true, but she still didn't murder someone. So that doesn't seem like that's a serious, when people bring up Genesis 9, because people said, well, what about Genesis 9:6, where it says if you take a life, then your life will be taken as well. It's really, the death penalty was instituted to show how much God cares and values life. Not just he's just in a mood to kill people, but I value life so much that if you take one, your life needs to be forfeit. Like, that's the thinking of it. So if people are bringing up that scripture to say, hey, God created the death penalty, and you're saying, well, the woman caught in adultery, she didn't kill anybody. And there were all kinds of things going on with that particular story. One, it's actually, I don't want to discredit the story, but just FYI, it's not in the earliest translations and stuff that we have, or manuscripts rather. But it is a great story, though. I'm not trying to like totally discredit, but just FYI, people do bring that up. Jesus knew that people were trying to get him constantly, to outsmart him, and he always outsmarted these people who were on his back constantly trying to judge him and kill him. So she's guilty, and someone tried to say she wasn't caught in adultery. I'm like, what do you mean she wasn't caught? I looked it up and highlighted. I'm like, it says she was caught. And they're like, you can't prove that. I'm like, why don't you believe what it literally says? It says she was caught in adultery. But if they did catch her, where was the man? Where was the man? Why did they only want to stone her? She didn't commit adultery with herself. So where was the man? These people were not doing things correctly. So there's that. Jesus said, pointing out that they were all hypocrites. Hey, if you're without sin, cast the first stone. And I was like, oh no, I can't be me. And they all left. And she didn't have any more accusers, so she was free to go. And what did Jesus tell her to do? Don't do it again. So there was mercy there. There was some quick thinking there. Brilliant thinking, truly. But he didn't take time. He didn't stop them by lecturing them on why it would be wrong to stone her, which, again, they were doing things out of order. But he challenged them, and then he gave a command to her. So I don't think that's a good scripture to try to cancel out Genesis 9 and 6. I'm pretty sure it's 9 and 6. That's not a good defense for that. And people can say, well, Jesus came to fulfill the law. I'm like, okay, but he didn't come to abolish it either. And this isn't even Mosaic law. It's a law that was instituted after the flood. And that's another thing. I saw so many different people trying to disqualify that in Genesis, like, oh, well, if God says we should murder murderers, and what about Cain? Well, there could be lots of reasons why God decided to show mercy on Cain after he slayed Abel. It could have been because it was the early days of humanity, for one. I don't know. That's his prerogative to show mercy on whoever he wants to show mercy to. But he did promise that whoever killed Cain was going to be met with vengeance sevenfold. So it's not like he was like, okay, well, everybody else is getting away with murder. He didn't say that. But that still predates Genesis 9 and 6. So nobody was given good reasons. The best reasons, though, to give to say that it's bad to support the death penalty is about the state being not competent enough or not trusting them enough to carry out justice. I understand those arguments. The state, from something I read some years ago, isn't even like very efficient when it comes to the death penalty. It's very expensive for some reasons. It's very expensive, maybe because of all the appeals and how long people usually stay on death row and so on. I don't know. Like, I can't imagine that last meal is that expensive, So I can understand people not trusting the state and that pit in your stomach about, gosh, what if we're wrong and we're killing the wrong person? I think in today's, we have a lot of safeguards, though. It's not impossible to convict someone who is innocent, but if a man impregnated a 9-year-old and then murdered her, would we not know he did it? Like, if it was clearly done on tape and there's confessions and DNA and all kinds of different evidence, not saying that they couldn't lie and people couldn't plant evidence and stuff, but I just, I think there's circumstances where you can be pretty sure beyond a reasonable doubt um, that someone is guilty of really heinous crimes. So I guess you could ask people who are concerned about the state situation is if we 100% knew that they did it, would you still support the death penalty and you still don't have to support it, but to just pretend like it's anti-God, it's anti-Christian, or it's incompatible with the pro-life ethic, that doesn't make any sense. So anyway, that's been going on the past couple days with Kristen Hawkins. I saw Ali Bastaki and other people getting involved. I was going back and forth with people too. But that's just an example of like me talking to my sisters, like, hey, this is going on and we're going through the Bible and talking about different things. That's just, that's just my life. I really love talking about the Bible. I mean, I like talking about politics, but some of y'all is crazy. By the way, at Bible study, interesting factoid. I have to go back and look at the research, but my sister was doing a teaching on anger. And she talked about like different regions of your brain. Like if you just stay angry all the time, it's going to start to kind of remap your brain a bit. So the parts that are supposed to be interpreting logic and so on, like you're not able to properly process that. And then I'm just like, oh, that's really fascinating. Maybe that explains the Trump derangement syndrome, where people get so mad at Trump all the time that they cannot use any sense of logic. Because you do see that with so many people, they just don't have any reason left within them. And it's really hard to just start untwisting their brain in such a way. So I'm gonna have to look back over her notes and stuff and do an interesting TikTok on it. But I was just like, that explains a lot. Anyway, let's go ahead and look at Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, don't say her name wrong because people will say that you are racist. And by the way, I was saying her name wrong forever until someone pointed out that it's like comma. I was like, oh, because I was saying Kamala. That's what I was saying. That's what I thought. You look at her name, and that's what it seemed like it said to me, like how you pronounce it. So I was like, people were saying that if you said her name wrong, that it was racism. It wasn't racism. I genuinely thought that you just said her name a different way. And then it was still difficult for me to stop saying it the way that I was conditioned to say it. So I guess in my mind now, I have Trump going, Kamala. So yeah, I'll say it correctly now, but it took a minute. It took a minute. So anyway, this is her talking about the SAVE Act. And I got a few clips about the SAVE Act today.
What else have they done? The SAVE Act. You know what the SAVE Act would do? Require that people show a birth certificate or a passport to register to vote. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's something like 40% of Americans don't have those documents. Married women, if you changed your name when you got married, it's going to be different than what's on your birth certificate, right? And what that's going to do in terms of complicating the ability of women to register to vote. And so this is happening in real time to suppress and obstruct the ability of people to vote. And then my concern, frankly, Aaron, is that when we saw what happened in Minneapolis.
Yeah, the next part isn't really relative. Okay. I don't know where she's getting her number quite from, but there is this one study that people kept quoting about an estimate. It was like a survey that was done to see if people had readily available documents. And out of like the readily available documents, which readily available means that you can get it by tomorrow if you need it. It doesn't mean that you don't have possession of it, that it's not at your mom's house safely tucked away, but maybe it's a train ride or two away and you don't feel like picking it up, or it's in a safety deposit box and you can't get to the bank today because it's already closed or something. it's stuff like that. It doesn't mean that it's lost. There was a lost section in the it was like 2% or something. It was like lost or something, which it's not hard to get your birth certificate if it's lost. So anyway, not readily available is a very kind of broad statistic, I guess. But they estimated that it would be like 21 million, I think, voters who are people who are eligible to vote. So that just would mean you're above like the age of 18. And it's they still could have access to their birth certificate, just not like, again, ready for the next day. And maybe they could have it by the next day. They're just, I guess not, again, not motivated enough to go get it at the bank, the safety deposit box. So it's really not a huge issue about Americans not having their birth certificates. They're readily available. We live in a digital age where you can order it online and it can be mailed to you very easily, very simply. They're not very expensive. And you could say, well, there's an expense to it. That's wrong. Okay, well, you had one, but it's whose fault is it that you lost it? You're an adult, or whoever had it before you was an adult. And if they lost it, that's their business. That's your business. And you can find a way to replace it. It's going to be like $15, $20 or something like that. I think mine was like $15. I got 2 copies or whatever. So maybe it was like $20, but not expensive. I went to the county office in the morning. I didn't have to really wait in line because I went in the morning and I got them easy peasy. So it's just not difficult. And as far as like, if you're a married woman and you changed your name, okay, well, that's anyone's name change. So really trying to make it like it's a female centric issue is obviously them trying to play to the war on women. I don't appreciate making women seem like they're extraordinarily incompetent. Like, oh, it's you got to do something extra. Again, you changing your name, that is a decision that you made, but it is easy to provide proof that you did change your name. And how the states are supposed to lay out the process to make sure that stuff is rectified. And if the Democrats are demanding that the Republicans need to make it more specific, then I really don't see a problem with them altering the bill a little bit to say that these forms of identification to validate your name change are acceptable, just so they stop crying. But they're not going to stop crying, because they're going to say the fact that you have to provide these additional documents is going to be some kind of infringement. That's what they'll say, or this added pressure that's so unnecessary or so unfair. It's just really, really stupid. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I'm not surprised that Kamala Harris is in on the rage bait. not in the least bit. But they're not the only ones. Let me go ahead and play this clip of Will Kane. He was doing a survey with a group. I think this might have been after the State of the Union address, and they asked about the SAVE Act, and there was a white Democrat who just was talking about how, and they're young too, so maybe they just are part of the TikTok brigade, and thought it was going to be too hard for minorities.
We all agree on that point. I just think that the reality is that an act like the SAVE Act is very likely more aimed at voter suppression and at keeping key demographics that the Republican Party does not want voting to not show out and vote. I think very often minority demographics.
That's not true.
No.
So this is the thing where
That's
the
not true.
suggestion is it's going to keep the black vote down. I've got 2 black panelists here. Ajwa,
That's not
do
true.
you have ID and proof of citizenship?
Yeah, and if I need a copy of my birth certificate, it's just a matter of going online or going up to the department and asking for it and showing my information to get it. I mean, to say that it would negatively affect a minority group because they're somehow not educated enough to get these documents is completely outrageous.
Annie?
In my opinion, this should not be a controversial issue.
Yeah, it really shouldn't be a controversial issue. But yeah, you see people in real life who've been convinced of this nonsense and are willing to say it with their full chest on national TV and make themselves look like a fool. This young man has allowed the Democrats, has allowed, I don't know, wherever he gets his news from, to convince him that Black people would be so disadvantaged by providing documentation when they register to vote that they likely have access to. It's so stupid. Yes, the GOP is trying to keep a certain demographic from voting. That demographic are non-citizens. And the more they push back, the more, I don't know, conspiratorial the right is going to get, or at least the president, about why they don't want something like this to pass. And there's other reasons why people could oppose the SAVE Act from the left. I don't know why they don't want to be honest about, I guess, real other concerns that they might have about the SAVE Act, and they really just want to focus on this racist, sexist portion of it, because every time they talk about it, they sound stupid. This young man made himself look like a racist as he tried to pin racism on the GOP. He looks like a racist because he allowed someone to get in his head that the GOP just doesn't like Black people. It is just really, 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 really dumb. But this isn't like the first time. Of course, there's been hysteria around voter ID, for example. Like, oh my gosh, they want people to show voter ID. Like, oh, what about Black people? People have IDs. They get code medicine, they show an ID. One time I had to show my ID at Arby's so they could verify it was me using the card that I had to pay for the food because I got food for my family and it was over $50. So, which it didn't happen all the time, but sometimes people will card you to make sure that you didn't steal someone else's credit card when you're paying for higher purchases. So it's just a fact of life. When you get your benefits, you need an ID. When you are hired to shovel snow for, like, was it $30 an hour, something absurd in New York, you got to show different identification, including an ID. So that's just how it works. You got a driver's license if you want to get around. One time before, I had a driver's license, but I just didn't have access to a car where I could drive down to I used to go to CCS, which is College for Creative Studies in Detroit. And so my dad would drive me into Pontiac, and because we were living out in Holly at the time. So he would drive me down to Pontiac, like downtown, and I would take a bus to school. So that was a long hassle for me. But they didn't believe that I was, like, not 18 or was I 18, or I think 19. I think if you were 19 then you had to pay a certain fare. But I have always kind of looked as a young, well, I think when I finally became an adult, I maybe looked when I guess a certain age or whatever, people thought I looked younger than I am. I think I probably look like I'm in my 30s, but because I'm definitely in my mid-30s now. But they didn't at times when I was like 14 or even 12, people would be asking me, did I want alcohol? And I'm just like, I'm 12, So but when I was on the bus and stuff, they didn't think I was, they thought I was older or whatever. And I was like, no, I'm still of age where I can pay like $1.25 or whatever it was. And so but anyway, I had to have my state ID and stuff to prove my age. So there's just all kinds of reasons why someone might have their ID on them, including to vote. And it's just not a hard ask. But even I read some time ago about SNAP benefits and how the pop lobby, I guess, basically wanted to be included in what could be purchased in like the different food stamp programs and so on. So they had people do all kinds of studies for them to say like, hey, people need these calories. And if you drink pop and stuff, poor people, they need calories. And if you drink pop, that's a good way to get calories real quick. for your kids and all you poor people out there. And so people who would fight against having different pop and stuff included in the SNAP benefits, they would turn to their studies that they paid for, and they would say, you don't want poor people who are disproportionately of color to have access to these calories. You want them to starve because you're racist, blah, blah, blah. And they would use those sort of accusations to try to push forward their different political goals and so on. So it's so many things are done not out of the kindness of people's hearts, but for because if you have, you know, SNAP benefits that can pay for all this kind of junk and so on, you got money coming from the people, from the government, that's just going to automatically basically be yours. So why wouldn't you want the government to legitimize you in that kind of way for the consumer, instead of really convincing someone, even if they don't have a lot of dollars, to spend it on you because you're just that good, you know? So people have been trying to use racism and gin up racism and have everything be racism, have everything be, you know, classes and so on. So they will pull at people's heartstrings to get them on their side. And at the same time, the people who will rule against them, they want that accusation of, hey, this person is fighting me because they're racist, and have all those people turn against them so they can ultimately win. And that's what's going on with the SAVE Act. Of course, it doesn't make any sense to say that Black people aren't going to be able to vote or register to vote because they can't get their birth certificate. And when you look at the different data that they've been quoting in the percentages of people who don't have access to their birth certificates, like it's like the difference between 8% versus 11%. It's like 8% white people and 11% for like the people of I don't even think it's Black people. I think it's people of color, which would encompass everybody who's not white. And I'm like, these people are tripping over 3%. A 3% difference is such a huge disparity where they're making it seem like this is such a racial issue. So it continues to be stupid. And unfortunately, it's going to be a thing that's probably talked about forever, because even if they do manage to pass it, they're just going to say this is a racist thing. And they're going to try to make it seem like if they don't get the kind of turnout and stuff that they want, that it's just about voter suppression. And even if they do get a tremendous amount of voter turnout, they're still going to try to forget that unfortunate fact and then say it was still about voter suppression. Just really, really dumb stuff. But unfortunately, that is the society that we live in. Anyway, let's talk about this really gross story about multi-millionaire Squatty Potty creates for buying child pornography. This is from the New York Post. Multi-millionaire creator of Squatty Potty, which if you watch Shark Tank, that might be familiar to you. That was one of like the earlier sort of inventions that became a big hit. Was hit with federal charges in Utah for allegedly buying countless child sex abuse materials, according to authorities. Robert Edwards, 50, was arrested for allegedly buying and receiving a trove of images of sexual abuse material between March 2021 and November 2025. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Utah announced on Monday the entrepreneur and co-founder of the specialized toilet seat that's designed to ease bowel movements was indicted by indicted by a federal grand jury on February 10th and cuffed in Washington County 2 days later, authorities said. In March 2021, an undercover FBI agent joined a group chat used to trade child sex abuse material. In the group chat, there was a meeting room where members viewed a collection of vile content being streamed on a main screen. Federal authorities detailed participants, including a user later identified as Edwards, were visible in the meeting, according to the DOJ. This sort of like perversion and being this bound is so disgusting. In May 2025, FBI agents Also learned that Edwards may have purchased additional child sexual abuse materials through his PayPal account, which was flagged for 4 suspicious transactions. In November, law enforcement executed a search warrant on Edwards in his home and confiscated a cell phone from his vehicle that contained multiple videos and images of child sexual abuse material, some of which was downloaded only 2 weeks prior, officials allege. Authorities then seized additional devices and allegedly discovered more child sex abuse material files at the Squatty Potty pioneer's residence. He pleaded not guilty to receipt of child pornography charges during his initial court appearance on his indictment and was ordered held without bail by Judge Paul Kohler in St. George, authorities said. Edwards co-founded Squatty Potty in 2021. I mean, sorry, I don't know why I said 2020, 2011, to address his mother, Judy's constipation issues. The mother-son duo successfully pitched the footstool for aiding bathroom business to investor Lori Grainer on Shark Tank. The product turned the Utah family into multimillionaires, according to CNBC article profiling the company. Edwards will return to court on March 2nd for a detention hearing. So, from my understanding, he is partner, have 4 kids, and I would assume that they're probably all through surrogates. Because when I say partner, Edwards and his partner Jason co-parent 4 incredible kids. Ivans, Utah, and his in Ivans, Utah, in his downtime, Edwards enjoys traveling, blah 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 blah. So let me see if I can find that really quick. I would assume it's either they adopted or they if it's surrogacy, it's one or the other. But I mean, I don't know how long this has been going on. I don't know if I can find it real quick. But if that is the case, you know, when it comes to surrogacy and stuff, they don't, you know, you can get your IVF baby without that much regulation. There's been other stories that have had some really questionable people who have had inappropriate relationships, or at least tried to, and inappropriate material involving children that have managed to acquire them via surrogacy and other means. So however you feel about that particular industry, whether you think it's ethical and should stay in place and available for families, I think it obviously needs a lot more regulation. And I don't think the type of regulation that would maybe at least start to make it more would be something that the industry would agree to. Because in Alabama, when they said that you have to, you know, a embryo, even if it's not in the womb, can still be considered a child, the IVF industry was ready to close its doors and shut down. So I don't know exactly how you could really put enough regulations to make it so that it's not radically expensive, and have the clinics operate in a way that they could really survive and see it to be beneficial. But I at least don't want people into child porn being able to rent a womb and buy some eggs and get a bunch of kids. But Anyway, someone had said something earlier that I hadn't addressed. This person's probably gone. On Facebook, they said Donald Trump called the Obamas apes and said that he thinks you are too backwards dilly, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's like horribly appropriate. If it is, I apologize. But he didn't. he didn't do that. Trump didn't call the Obamas apes. By the way, if Trump wanted to do that, I think he would just kind of do it. Like if he really just wanted to attack the Obamas, he would just do it. I don't think he'd come up with some elaborate plan to screen record a video on voter fraud with make sure that the right reel played immediately after it was over of this short clip of the Obamas. I have condemned the I guess the behavior of posting all this wild stuff and not like really looking through it all, because he says he didn't see that part. And I don't think he said that he saw it, but he didn't see that part, which was my initial reaction. I'm like, he probably didn't see that because it's a reel that automatically played. And if like a staffer posted it and he didn't post it, that's obviously not doing their due diligence and it's wrong. They really screwed up. I don't know how to say that more than I have. I complain about how they handle their social media stuff all the time. If you watch me, you know that. But did he call them monkeys? Did he call them apes? No, it's literally not what happened. And is literally what maybe you could say, Christine, you're naive and you're operating in too good faith for them. Okay, but maybe that's the case. But to me, it doesn't look like he even meant to really post that. Out of all the things that I can believe, I can certainly believe that they were irresponsible with their social media post and he didn't know that followed the video about the voter fraud stuff. That's a really easy thing to believe. It gives me no peace of mind that that's the case, but that's a really easy thing for me to believe, that this was a major misunderstanding and an accident. And I think if he really wanted to talk trash about the Obamas, he would just say whatever he wanted to say with his full chest. Okay. But he didn't call them monkeys. He didn't call them apes. And he doesn't think that I'm an ape. That's really stupid. But I think when people say that kind of stuff, I don't know, maybe they're projecting. After the whole Trump Obama thing, I was just thinking about all the people who call me racial slurs. And there are people who were really offended by Trump's post who were in my comments, and I'm just like, I recall when you called me a racial slur like last week. I'm not gonna cry a river over this. One, I don't think that was maliciously done, as far as that particular video being on the tail end of the other one that he meant to share. But I'm not gonna be super offended on the behalf of people who are actually racist. People are so mad about this video that he accidentally posted, when there's people who think black people are too stupid to have a birth certificate and register to vote. Like, that's what they're really trying to push. And they don't like when you push them and they're like, when you actually say, oh, you think black people are too stupid? Like, yeah. Okay, so what is so deficient in black Americans that you think that they won't be able to get their ID or their registration together to vote? Why are you so concerned about how this is going to disproportionately impact black people? I don't care when abortion disproportionately impacts black people, even though that's killing us. By the way, I am working on a project right now where I'm going through every state to post. It's going to be, we got a couple more days of Black History Month. I'm going to try to film it today, if not tomorrow, and have it together and just go through every state and say, this is how many abortions are committed in the state. This is how many Black babies are killed. This is the percentage of Black people actually in the state. And notice how it's just proportionate. You know, it'll be like 40%. Like in Michigan, in the past has been like 56%, but I think the 2023 number was 40 something percent, and we're only 14% of the population. So that's really disproportionate, right? So well, there's no outcry about something like that. You don't think that's not more important than a dumb post that the that the president accidentally posted? And the Uncle Tom, the Coons, all those kind of comments, it just, if you're a hypocrite, I don't care. And there's plenty of people who don't use that kind of language that, when we can have a conversation. Again, I don't think he meant to do it. And again, if I think if he had an issue, by the way, if he did have an issue and decided to call the Obama some unsavory things, I think it would be so personal. I don't think it would be a reflection of how he feels about Black people. Like when he called Omarosa a dog, I don't think that's what he thinks of Black people. I think that's what he thought of Omarosa, who for some reason he loved for a very long time, even though she's just literally famous for being a TV villain. But whatever. When she started coming out against him, he's called her a dog. And then they tried to say that was racist. Or maybe he just hates Omarosa. Maybe he just hates her. So, oh, wow. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Okay, so we got this comment from Gary here. I'm in the midst of me complaining about these people who are upset about the Trump thing with Obama. I'm complaining about how these people are actually racist. And I don't care how offended these actual racists are. And then he comes in my comments and says, no, you are a bootlicking sellout. You're a racist, sir. Like, what do you care about what other racists are doing if he's allegedly actually racist? You yourself are a racist. And then he's saying, you vote with KKK members and neo-Nazis. Like who? You know the KKK members were Democrats, right? you know the people who enslaved my ancestors were Democrats, right? There was no party switch. Don't even try it. Like, don't even try it. Don't even try it. So I hated that he posted that. But again, it was a video of voter fraud and someone screen recorded it. It was a reel, and a reel automatically started playing. They didn't watch that video. I think it's totally reasonable to believe that they didn't watch the video. It was totally irresponsible to not watch it to the end, and someone posted on his Truth account. I'm not trying to defend what happened. I'm trying to explain to you what happened. I'm explaining to you what happened. I'm not okay with what happened, but I'm also not convinced that people who are actual racists care that much about other people being racist. Like, heal yourself, bro. Go look in the mirror. You go repent. You cast the beam out of your own eye and get right. You go get right yourself. Spare me. Spare me. Even if Trump were a racist, why should I side with the other side filled with racists? Why? Why should I do that? So much racism comes from the left. I'm not saying that I have an experience from the right, but so much racism comes from the left. Whether it's hard kind of racism or the soft bigotry of low expectations, which is also really annoying, by the way. You're not compelling. You're not compelling. The party of you ain't black is not compelling. The party of all skin folk ain't kinfolk is not compelling. The party of black people are too dumb to get IDs and have their birth certificate is not compelling. It's just not. It's just not. But thanks for the engagement, Gary. Thanks anyhow. Thanks anyhow. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys on today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, you guys can leave a donation on the website because it does cost a streamer on my site. All that good. So you guys can support it very much. Appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch that's available. Like the Be Better Not Bitter shirt. Maybe Gary would like one of those. Or I do have the shirt, the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For. That's a good one. Or there's also the You Are Not That Special that you can gladly pick up, Gare, if you'd really like. Anyway, God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.